you so much, Wally, for joining me today. I was commenting before we started recording about your setup. Tell me a little bit about it.
Well, it's a little thing I call Planet Wallywood. If you've ever heard of Planet Hollywood, it's kind of a takeoff on that. This is a lot of some of the stuff, not a lot of the stuff. My house is a museum, virtually. There's something in every room of the house. And on Twitter, I've been posting these little 2-minute Twitter tours of each room. And let's see, I have the home theater, which is down there. It's a theater set up with, chairs and things and beanbags. And we used to have movie nights every Saturday night. And there's all kinds of stuff down there, autographs, collectibles, all kinds of stuff. My kitchen has stuff in it. This is my main showcase area. As you can see, my lunch boxes up there, Adam West and Burt Ward, life-size figures and the little Batcave set. There's all kinds of stuff there. You can see there in my showcase. Shakespeare head, like in the old Batman show. I have a Chaney room named for Lon Chaney, which is the Man of a Thousand Faces, who I love. Even stuff in my downstairs bathroom. And I have 2 rooms upstairs, the Tranquility Zone and the Puppet Room. So there's virtually something to see everywhere. I used to give tours before everybody, locked themselves up because of a flu. Stuff to the collection. I just got this today at Hobby Lobby. It's a little kind of funny thing, but I love Star Trek, the original Star Trek. So you see that, you can see Star Trek, and then there they go.
That is super cool.
And they beam in. Isn't that cool?
Yeah, that is really cool.
Looks really great on camera, but it's lenticular. And I said, this is really, really cool. So that's going to go next to my Star Trek display. And I also found this thing today, which is for a Darth Vader like key hook, which you can put keys to the TIE fighter on. And drive around space and do whatever.
Let's move on to some of the characters that you've voiced, specifically Bleach for now, the anime Bleach. It ended in 2012, a little abruptly, because the manga continued. Are you excited to see Bleach return? Because late last year we heard that it's coming back, the anime's back, the speculation's over.
Well, you never know what the producers are going to do with a new thing. They may completely recast. They did that for Final Fantasy VII. They recast stuff all the time. So they may start from scratch and throw out all the old voice actors and get all new guys. That's not unheard of in this town. So when you say, are you excited for it? It's like, not really. I'll be excited if they call me and say, we want you to be Renji again. I'd be like, sure. But I'm not holding my breath because I know how this industry works. And, look at, there was a, that sound again. There was a movie done recently, a feature film, about a very popular, legendary dog and a group of his friends. And they threw out almost the entire original voice cast in favor of celebrities. And did it do any business? I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe the pandemic hurt its business. Maybe the fact that none of the originals were there. But, if I was a kid and I was used to seeing a show and I went to see this movie or saw the trailer and said, well, that's not the voices that I'm used to. Why would I want to go see this? I probably wouldn't go see it. But recast stuff happens all the time. So, yeah, I'm a little tentative about it because you never know. They may recast. Who knows? You just never know.
So that means you haven't heard anything about the production yet?
Not a single word. And that's the God's honest truth.
Well, hypothetically, if they didn't recast. Hypothetically, they didn't recast and they were to email you and say, hey, you want to be Renji again? Would you be excited to do it?
Very. I love the whole thing. And unlike the United States, where the cinematic universe kind of tells the comics what to do, over there, it's the manga that tells the cartoons what to do. So between the publication of the manga, the TV episodes are like, well, we just got to have some filler until the new manga comes out. We know what the storyline is. So that's kind of weird. So we have a lot of those filler episodes. You're like, what the hell's going on in this thing? So, but yeah, it's a lot of fun, and I love all the rest of the cast. Whenever I would see them going in to record. So where's some wood I can knock? Let's hope that when it comes back to be dubbed, they get the original cast back. If that's what the fans want, It's really going to be all about the fans. I know that some of the other stuff, like I said, had been recast, and the fans have been like, "Well, what is this?" And sometimes the studio will listen to the fans, sometimes they won't. It's just a matter of what they, who's in charge of producing it. Do they want to put their own thumbprint on it by getting a whole new cast? Will the fans accept the new voices? I mean, is it going to be a continuation of where the anime left off originally in 2012 or whatever?
I mean, this is just my personal opinion. I could see there being a lot of filler only because the manga did end a few years ago.
Hmm.
So the next arc, what they're about to animate, is complete. There's no mystery. I mean, they could extend on it. There's no mystery in the sense that we kind of know what happens through the
Hmm.
manga. So I have a feeling if they're going to bring it back, there might be a lot of filler, which could surprise a lot of fans with a lot of content that they weren't expecting.
Yeah.
Um, but in saying that, because of those potential surprises or potential changes that they could potentially make, can you see it becoming as popular as what it once was back in 2012 or 2011, 2010?
Well, one would hope that they haven't lost any momentum in the downtime.
Hmm.
But I mean, look at I was blessed to be involved in something called Invader Zim on Nickelodeon, and there was a downtime of about 20 years before they did a feature film on Netflix called Enter the Florpus. And according to the crowds at San Diego Comic Con a couple years ago, that hadn't lost any fan base at all. In fact, it had probably increased because people kept passing the videos around and making fan videos, and the comics certainly helped. So I would expect that Bleach is a strong enough franchise to where it's probably going to maintain, and the fan base is still fairly rabid. But it's got to be the right combination. Again, does that mean that includes casting the original voice actors to do it? We don't know. We'll see. But well, there's a lot of different ways it could go. So we hope it goes the way we all want, and maybe it will, maybe it won't. Who knows? It just depends on who gets put in charge of producing it. So hopefully it'll go our way. We'll see.
We'll move on to another anime that you were involved in, and it's a spin-off as well. You were involved in Naruto as Aoba.
Hmm.
I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure that I've pronounced that correctly. I'm horrible with the Japanese pronunciations of anime characters, as well as Kinkishi later on in the spin-off, the Boruto series. You've also done a bit of Jiraiya and Mu in some of the video games too of the series.
Hmm.
Um, just wondering, Aoba hasn't appeared in the Boruto anime yet. Are you hopeful that he will and you'll be more involved in Boruto?
I'm always hopeful to be involved in anything. I'm just like, I'll show up to the opening of an envelope. It doesn't matter. Some of those characters are fairly important for the long run. Some of them are kind of minor, and some of them are fairly important for a small story arc. I'm just happy when they show up and say, "Hey, are you interested in doing something?" And something. I'm like, "Oh yeah, sure, sure, sure."
I noticed a few weeks ago, um, the first episode of Jiraiya's clone was announced in the Japanese. It hasn't come in the English dub or anything, but the Japanese version decided to cast a different voice actor in comparison to the Jiraiya so the Japanese voice actor and the clone of Jiraiya are voiced by two different people and have two completely different voices. Now, my understanding of an identical clone is that they're identical. Um,
One would
just
think.
one would think, yeah. So obviously the English hasn't been announced yet. You've done a little bit of dry work through the video games, but if Koji, who's the clone of Jiraiya, was to be introduced in the anime eventually, would it make sense to someone like you that it would have a similar voice actor to um, the original? And if so, would you like to do it in a video game potentially, where that character appears in a game? Would you like to be that character?
Oh, absolutely. There was a show I was involved in called Sonic Boom,
Mhm.
about Sonic the Hedgehog, and I played Cubot. Cubot, hey, that's the right man. And he got cloned in like an episode where it was me basically talking to myself, but It was Cubot with cowboy hat, Cubot with this, Cubot with that, and it was basically the same voice, just because they were all clones. So one would think that following the clone, thing that they did in Star Wars, they all were voiced by the same guy, right? All the stormtroopers had the same. Tamura Morrison voiced all of the stormtroopers, I think, because once it was established that, oh, these are all clones inside the armor, then it's got to be the voice of the same guy, because all the clones would sound alike because they're all based on, Jango Fett. But yeah, one would think that if you're a clone and you're an identical copy, you would need to sound exactly like the original. Otherwise, people would go, you look like my friend, but you don't sound like my friend. Something's wrong. So maybe, who knows? I have no idea why they might have done that, but there might be some reason for it in the story arc later that we're not sure of, but we'll see.
Okay, that's fair enough. By the way, I used the exact example in a YouTube video earlier about Star Wars, and I thought Star Wars have done it perfectly. Boruto, not so much. But again, I'm hopeful for that the English version might rectify that little
Right.
difference. Personally,
Well, like I said, it's a lot about what the fans want, and if the fans make it known that, hey, we don't understand why the clone of this character sounds different, why? And the producers will go, oh, I mean, look how responsive the producers to the Sonic motion picture was when the fans came out and said, your character design isn't what we had hoped for. They spent a great deal of money and time to redesign that character because they thought, uh-oh, if we don't have the fans on our side with this movie, we're in trouble. So what they did was they did a lot of recalibration and redesign, and it made a lot of money. And the fans were completely elated with the design that they ended up presenting. So some producers will listen, some producers may not, and it's up to them what they want to do. So interesting. It's a weird business. It really is. There's no rhyme or reason or logic to any of this. Every day I get called, or any day that I get called to get a gig. I wish it was every day I get called to get a gig. But anytime I get called to get a gig, I'm always like, sure, thankful to have it. Just, I'm not having to dig a ditch. I don't have to live in the cold, snowy weather of South Dakota and work, on a snowplow crew. I get to do this, and every day is a blessing. And I'll show up. Just tell me what you want me to do, and I'll do it.
okay. Well, on to that. You've worked on a lot of anime, Marvel, DC cartoons, movies, as well as TV shows. What led you to voice acting? What was it that drove you to that?
When you grow up in a state like South Dakota, which is a great state, but there's not a lot of opportunity for the creative types. So when I was a kid, I really wanted to be an actor, and I would do a lot of cosplay as a kid and come up with these costumes and do different voices and characters. And even when it wasn't Halloween, I would be dressed up as some costume running around the neighborhood, which was a cause for concern from some of the neighbors, I'm sure, who thought it was kind of weird. Why is it summer and Wally's running around in a Star Trek outfit? Or why is it summer and Wally's running around with vampire teeth and a cane trying to bite girls? It's not even Halloween yet. It's not even close to Halloween.
The later would actually be more popular now after Twilight and Vampire Diaries. But
right, exactly.
But
So, right. But they didn't really get that. There wasn't a lot of community theater or a lot of that stuff going on. But once I got into high school, junior high school, I started really kind of performing. Well, the only outlet for a person who is creative in an environment like that in a small town is radio, a radio DJ. So I've always loved music, always been a musicologist, and always studied music. I'm a musician. And I thought this would be great to be able to play records on the radio and broadcast, and that's what I wanted to do. So after several years of being a radio DJ, a broadcaster, I said, well, I'm gonna move to Los Angeles to be an actor. And you're thinking, well, there's the camera, you're on camera, you're acting, because I'd done a lot of plays and theaters and improv when I was in South Dakota. So I figured I was ready. Well, I came out here in 1987 and very quickly fell out of love with on-camera acting, being a face actor.
Okay.
because I wanted to, be Lon Chaney. I wanted to be the guy who could be the man of a thousand faces and transform into any characters. It's like, well, yeah, I have a beard and long hair now, but I wouldn't necessarily need to have that for a character. I'll cut my hair, I'll shave my beard, I'll do whatever, put some contacts in to make my eyes look different. I'll, put some teeth in or whatever, because that's what acting is. It's all transforming. But the casting people would just judge you based on how you looked when you walked in through the door. And they wouldn't even need to hear your acting, or you would have rehearsed this scene and you would have perfected it and you're ready to audition. But you can see on their face the minute you walk in, and they're like, where they like, it's not really right. And then they'll listen to you do your audition, they'll watch you do your audition, but they've already made their mind up. So I quickly fell out of love with on camera. And a friend of mine said, hey, why don't you try voiceover? And I said, well, what's that? Well, it's, voices in commercials and TV commercials and cartoons. I'm like, cartoons? What? Because I'd always been a cartoon fan since I was a kid. I've always been a cartoonist. I could draw, and I used to spend many hours in my room on cold, snowy days in South Dakota cartooning. But Popeye was, I think, my first word. So even more than like mommy or daddy, I think Popeye was, because I used to love the Popeye cartoons. So I'm like, well, yeah, doing cartoon voices would be great. I'd love that. That's much more fun. And that way you can, when you're not on camera, you can be 10 or 11, 12 different people in a day. You know what I mean? You can be a trash collector or a talking flower pot or a squirrel or a bunny or a bicycle with a flat tire or whatever, a race car and a talking lion. You can do all those different characters. You can be a teenager, you can be an old man, you can be a wizard, you can be a ghost. And it's just the variety of the amount of characters that you could do. And I used to do a lot of voices on my radio show when I was a radio DJ. So I said, well, this is kind of really more it suits my multiple personality disorder better than if I was doing on-camera stuff. So I've never really been that interested in on-camera. It's okay, it's fun, I've done it. I've done a lot of it. I've done films and commercials and different things, but I really, really do prefer voiceover. And there are a lot of people like me who want to just be voice actors, and they don't care about being face actors. And they hone themselves, they hone that craft so well that that's all they are voice actors, and they're completely happy with it. And I found it just very, very, very fulfilling, and I'd like to do it for the rest of my life. And if I do some face acting stuff from time to time, yeah, sure. I'm not going to cut my hair and shave anymore. I don't want to be the man of a thousand faces. I'm like, this is what you get. If you want a guy with long hair and a stocking cap and a beard to come in and be a weird, wacky neighbor, I'll do that. But don't expect me to. Those days are gone. So, but I really, 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 truly love the art of voice acting, because not everybody can do it. Pretty much everybody comes out of college and having done plays is that I'm going to be an actor, and they get on camera and they do their thing and whatever. But the craft of voice acting is so specific and so intense. It's so intense, and the training is I think way more intense than being an on-camera actor. That's why some of these on-camera actors who are now getting into voiceover find themselves having to be on their feet for 4 hours and be good in a 4-hour video game or cartoon session, and after like a half hour they're exhausted. Because, like, I'm used to being in my trailer and, only having to be good for a couple of minutes. And, there are very, very long days on camera shoots. But the amount of time that an on-camera actor actually works on the set is very minimal compared to having to be on your feet for 4 straight hours and not lose your voice and still not get tired and still make sure your acting is good and you're in character. So the people who are voice actors are some of the best actors I know. They just choose to do their acting with their voice and not, an arched eyebrow or a uneven, jaw. And I love it, and I'd like to do it the rest of my life. But I will do on camera from time to time when asked. But my true love is voiceover. So that's
Voiced a lot of characters over a lot of different genres. I mentioned just a few before. Is there any particular character that stood out that you really thoroughly enjoyed a little bit more than everyone else? Just a little bit.
Sure. There's two that come right to mind. John Arbuckle in Garfield, because he was close to me. a dorky guy who owns a cat and a dog and talks to them like they're his babies. Hey guys, do you want to go out for a walk now? Okay. Garfield, you ate all the lasagna. What's going on? Odie, is it time to go out? Let's go to the beach. You know, that's kind of like how I talk to my dog and cat. And the Riddler, just because he's so snarky and so and the writing is so wonderful on those Arkham games and any Riddler stuff. Those two characters, but they're night and day. They're yin and yang. I mean, Arbuckle is the nice guy dweeb, and the Riddler is the really bad guy who would just as soon burn you with acid as to talk to you. So it offers a great variety, and you know.
Yeah, they're slightly different.
Just a little bit, yeah.
Just a bit.
Yeah.
Well, on the Riddler, I remember watching the first time I watched the Riddler on screen. It was Jim Carrey. It was in a movie. I was a kid, but then I really liked the Riddler in a lot of the cartoons growing up too. And you voiced the Riddler quite a bit over that period of time, so I've obviously listened to you as the Riddler. Do you ever think you'd like to see more of the Riddler as you're a clear Batman fan in general? Because I feel like he's overshadowed by the Joker, but I feel like he's such a cool character as well.
Well, I don't think I'm out of turn in saying that we have a bit of Joker burnout going on. I think we've seen so many Jokers, and it's just been so heavily relied upon. And you're like, all right, enough with the Joker already. Can we go deeper into the catalog and get some of the other Rogues Gallery? Man-Bat. I would love to see a great Man-Bat story done. But the Riddler is the villain in the new movie with the guy from Twilight. So they're gonna, but he's considerably darker, than any of the Riddlers that we've seen in the past. But my first Riddler was Frank Gorshin on the TV series. And he was wacky and fun and wonderful. And I had no problem keeping the Riddler and the Joker separate because one had makeup in the purple suit, the other was green and didn't have makeup and wore a mask. But there was always some confusion about the Riddler and the Joker. Like people would call the Joker the Riddler and the Riddler Joker all the time. So when they were casting for the Riddler in the Arkham series, the main thing that they were asking for is that it can't sound anything like Mark's Joker. It's got to be a completely different character standing on its own without any sort of Jokerisms, because there's enough confusion already about these two characters. So, and then they went on to say, well, he's more like a game show host who's running Batman through these traps in these games. And I'm like, oh, I can get into this. But there's a few great Jokers, and all the rest I feel kind of fall by the wayside. But there was Cesar Romero was a great Joker, and Mark Hamill was a great Joker. All the rest I was kind of like, I'm okay with it. But I'm happy with having the Riddler only show up, in limited amounts, because I don't want to see the day where there's Riddler burnout, like there's Joker burnout. I mean, how many Jokers do we need? Now we've got the movie just called The Joker, but it's not really the Joker. It's the It could be not really in the world of Batman, but could. Well, is he related to Heath Ledger? What's going on? There's all these different worlds, and they keep reinventing it. So I'm a little burned out on the Joker, frankly, because I'm happy watching Cesar Romero, and I'm happy watching Mark Hamill's work on the animated series, and that's my Jokers. Those are my Jokers. So the Riddler, same thing. If I was lucky enough to be able to do the Frank Gorshin Riddler for 2 films with Adam West and Burt Ward and Julie Newmar as well. So I not only was I the Arkham Riddler, which was a completely different character, but then I also got to do the Frank Gorshin and sound as much like Frank as possible. And I knew Frank, and we were pals, and it was kind of cool that now that he's gone that I get to do that. And it's kind of a little special full circle kind of thing. But they're 2 completely different Riddlers. One is, like I said, would just as soon, put you in a vat of acid, and the Gorshin Riddler is like, well, here's a funny, silly riddle that I'm going to throw up in a water balloon or something. It's just really kind of crazy. So it's because that TV series from the 60s was campy and delightful, I think, was just wonderful. But everything's gotten so dark now, where everybody's got like some sort of ethos or pathos or whatever they call it that they got to work out. And it's I was talking to a guy today at lunch who was the son of a friend of mine who's about 21, 22. No, he's about 23. And we were at Hobby Lobby, and we were looking at all the stuff, that they have there with all the Marvel superheroes. They have a lot of wall hangings and stuff, and they have a lot of wall art, and they have DC comics as well. And Josh was saying, "Wow, I want to get into reading comics. Were you ever into comics?" Dude, I had a huge comic collection, but back in the '60s and '70s. I'm not sure I'd be into the comics today because it's for a whole different audience. It's not me and it's not my age. But I said, do yourself a favor, get yourself some really good Silver Age comics, and look at the great, Neil Adams, look at the great Jack Kirby, look at those artists, and pick up some of those comics. And the stories were charming and fun, and they were colorful, and there was no creepiness and darkness going on. It was just fun superhero stories. And I always used to love, like, in the corners, like, the editor would have to remind you, well, remember what he said, little asterisk in the comic balloon, what he's referring to happened in The Amazing Spider-Man number 49. And it's like, because everything's like cross-pollinated. It was brilliant. And I have a letter from Stan Lee, because I wrote to Stan Lee when I was a kid and drew him a birthday card with a character of him, and he actually sent me, it's framed upstairs on display in my puppet room. So I was a huge fan. So yeah, I'm happy with the Riddler just having his place in history. But I think based on the fact that he's the main villain now in this new movie, The Batman, probably says to us what the producers were actually thinking, like, let's not do Joker again because it's been done, been there, done that. Penguin's a little weird. Catwoman, we've seen that. But, hey, the Riddler hasn't really been explored. And so, I don't know. But even on the show Gotham, I think they had a great actor playing Edward Nygma, who was transforming into the Riddler. And they focused on him, I think, quite a great deal. I never watched the show, but I would see him a lot, and people would mention how much they loved his performance on that show. So I think the Riddler still will have his day, and I'm hoping that will probably be with this new movie where people go, hey, you know what? We were so obsessed with the Joker that this Riddler character is pretty cool, and wow, he's really dark, and he's got an edge. So we'll see what happens. But anytime they call and say you want to do a Riddler thing for that, they don't even get the sentence out, and I'm like, yes, before they can even complete the sentence. So it's one of the greats, and being a lifetime Batman fan, it certainly is a supreme blessing and supreme honor to be now have my own little niche in the Batman lore. So I'm very, very thankful for that.
Perfect. Well, I'm looking forward to the movie as well. So it'd be interesting. So as a voice actor, only because you mentioned Mark Hamill, and he was the Joker, and people say that he was the best Joker. And I grew up with his animated version. His voice was the Joker for me personally, because the Heath Ledger movie came out a little bit later on, and the Jack Nicholson was a little earlier. Will you naturally critique it subconsciously a little bit? Like, I wouldn't have said it that way, but it's still good. But I would have said it a bit like this. I don't know. Is it weird seeing someone else do a character that you're so fond of that you yourself portray as well?
Different worlds. Mm-hmm. It's like comparing Frank Gorshin and the guy on the Gotham show. It's like it's completely. Jim Carrey basically was kind of doing Frank Gorshin from the series. His physicality and the laugh and the whole thing. That's what I thought. He had a lot of Frank Gorshin in his Riddler, but there wasn't because that world that Batman Forever, and it was of the big screen Batmans, that was kind of my favorite because it was the most colorful and the most fun, and it took itself not too seriously. So I thought it was really fun. The punk hair was kind of weird, but other than that, yeah, it was interesting. No, I'm not. I realize that there's a different type of characterization for all these different worlds, and I'd be like, oh, well, that's his Riddler, this is my Riddler, this is what we do in this world. But, you know, it's sometimes interesting to hear people say, oh, I heard this other or saw this other guy, Riddler, and I thought that maybe he had taken this maybe from you. And I'm like, well, you know, we all steal from each other eventually. I stole from Frank Gorshin, and you know, everybody steals from somebody when they put this stuff together, and then they kind of hybridize it. It's like, well, I'm going to do a little bit of this guy and a little bit of this guy, but I'm going to put some in this, you know. So it's not a full-on theft. But for example, we were talking about the Flintstones the other day, and how it was basically an animated version of the Honeymooners with Jackie Gleason and Art Carney. And Hanna-Barbera said, no, we're doing the Honeymooners. So they had Alan Reed do, you know, Fred as Jackie Gleason. Hey, Barney! You know, it's like, okay, well, that's the Jackie Gleason. And they asked Mel Blanc, well, you're Barney. And he's like Art Carney. Hey, Fred! And Mel was like, I don't really want to steal from another actor. That's not really cool. And that's why the first several episodes of the Flintstones, he was saying, hey, Fred, how you doing? It was kind of like a nasally New Jersey voice. And it didn't really seem Honeymooners-ish to me. So finally he did acquiesce, and he did say, yeah, you're right, I got to do Ed Norton from the Honeymooners in order for this gag to play. So, you know, it's sometimes it's a blatant ripoff, and they call it a voice match. And other times it's... you give them all sorts of different flavors, but you give them a little bit of this, a little bit of that. So if another actor takes something from Jim Carrey for his portrayal of Riddler, fine. If he takes a little from the video games, that's fine. It's like it's all mishmash together. But no, I'm not going to sit back and go, I would have done this. And it's like, no, this is his gig, and I'm not going to be too critical about anything. So. You know, there's enough of the stuff to go around for most everybody. So I'll just take it for what it is and just enjoy it. You know, watch it.
Perfect. And what are you working on right now? Out of the multiple different genres you could be working on what are you doing as of present?
Nothing I can talk about. It's all NDA, non-disclosure agreement, and you know, you got to sign your life away when you do some of this stuff. And it's just, if you even hint around at some of the stuff or breathe anything about it, it's verboten, as they say.
So going back to what I asked about Bleach, you could have potentially already been starting to produce stuff, and you have just not been able to tell me.
No, because I said God's honest truth, I have not been contacted. That's the honest truth. So, so if anybody who has anything to do with the new Bleach thing, call me. I'm available. But you just never know about this stuff. Sometimes they just may want to start over and completely recast. And if they do, fine. You know, that's their prerogative. They own the characters, and they can do what they want to. But you know, they have to be prepared for any sort of fan backlash that may occur. But they may not care about that.
Yes, wouldn't it?
It's about 6:54 in the U.S. right now. And hi there, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastically, thank you. Are we on the air? Hello? Oh, this is great. I love Zoom. Hi, Zoom. Hi, ho. Oh, this is wonderful.
I'm a huge Muppet fan, so I always like to. I have. Let's see.
There's. I have Kermit, of course. I have a Robin the Frog, which I made because I used to make puppets a lot as a kid, and I started making puppets again now during the lockdown because I had nothing else to do. So the Kermit here was made by a puppeteer, a puppet maker somewhere who does this professionally. And let's see, I have a Gonzo, I have an animal, and let's see, I have a green Grover. Did you know that Grover on Sesame Street was actually green when he started off? I have a green Grover that I made.
I thought Grover was always green.
No, Grover's blue now. He started off as a character named Gleep.
Oh, right.
But they changed him, after the first season. I have one I made called Beautiful Day, who was from the first season of Sesame Street, one of the original Handsome Muppets. I have an Oscar the Grouch that I built. And I have a Manamana, and I have a Baby Java. And, of course, I have some other puppets that I made when I was a kid that I still managed to keep from 20-some-odd years ago.
Yeah, a long time ago, wasn't it?
Yep, it was great. But I have a Kermit that I made when I was a kid.
You have another Kermit?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I thought I was the only Kermit.
Nope. Sorry.
Oh, okay. All right. But I'm the best Kermit, right?
Well, I'm kind of partial to my first Kermit.
What?
I said I'm kind of partial to my first Kermit.
Okay, I can see that. I get it. I get it.
I made a Cookie Monster. I have a Cookie Monster. I have a Beaker. I have a Blue Grover. I have a Kermit. I have a Rolf the Dog. I have a Gonzo. So it's kind of cool. But nothing's like the one-to-one replica of a Kermit the Frog made by a professional puppet maker. So.
All right, well, good to see you. I'm going to take off here and go have a snack. Cheeseburger and some flies. Yum, yum, yum. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So, out of all the, I'm not gonna call them toys because every time my partner calls them toys, I get annoyed. Out of all the collectibles that you have, which one is? Do you have a favorite collectible? Because I definitely have a favorite collectible, but I want to know. I want to know what your favorite collectible is.
You go first.
I go first. Okay.
Yeah. What's your favorite?
So I have. It's not even a collectible, really. It's just something that I own. It's an Obi-Wan Kenobi that I got when I was a kid. And it's more the story behind it. My little brother, when I was a kid, I got this Obi-Wan. I loved it. It had a light up lightsaber. It was so
It's
cool.
a figure?
It's a figure. It's about this big. It's not very big. And it's from the Obi-Wan Kenobi movie from the Phantom Menace. So it's that version of Obi-Wan. And my brother...
McGregor.
Yeah, it is. A young one.
Yeah.
And my brother decided he's going to bury it in the front yard, and I never saw it again. And he forgot where he buried it. He forgot that he even buried it. And then we're moving out of this house 10 years later. 10 years later, we're moving out of the house. The car scuffs up a bit of mud from the driveway as we're loading all the stuff into the car, moving houses. And I look and I see this little leg. I pull it out, and it's my Obi-Wan from when I was 6. And now I've cleaned it up. It's in my mantle. It's awesome. And I don't know, that stands out for me because of that sentimental thing. It's like it was meant to be. I was meant to keep it.
Right. And Obi-Wan used the Force because you were moving. He didn't want to be left alone. He wanted to go with you.
That's what it is. That's what it was.
So he used the Force to move the mud. How old are you?
I am 27. I had to think about that.
You probably don't remember. I mentioned Danny DeVito there in a show called Taxi. You probably don't remember a comedian. Well, he wasn't really a comedian. He was more like a performance artist named Andy Kaufman. He was on that show as Latka.
Okay.
Thank you very much. He would talk, like this, and he's from a different country, and he would immigrate to New York to work on the cabs.
So Andy Kaufman just struck me as I was a kid because he was so funny. And we bore a kind of a resemblance to each other. But I always loved, and he did the best Elvis impersonation I've ever seen. And so I've always loved Andy Kaufman. My favorite collectible is his performance outfit that he used when he did all kinds of TV specials and concerts and appearances. And I have the full outfit, the jacket, the turtleneck, the shirt. Come up. The shirt. Come on. The shirt, the pants, come on. Come say hi. And the tennis shoes, and even say hello to everyone, Mr. Spook. Say hello to everyone. Hello. Oh, he's like, I see myself on TV. You see yourself on TV? Look at that. Hello, everybody.
I really wish my cats were in the house at the moment. My partner's taken both of them to a friend's house. I would have loved our cats to have met.
Right.
It would have been a lovely experience. We recently
You can show them this video.
I'll show them the video, and they'll stare. They'll stare at it for ages as well. They just love other animals.
This is Spook, and he gets lonesome when I'm not paying attention to somebody else and not him. I just come up and say hello. So he'll be here for a little while and get nice white hair all over my black shirt, which is he loves doing that.
How old is Mr. Spook?
Spook is about 15, I believe. Yeah,
15.
he's 15. I have a 12-and-a-half-year-old dog as well, so it's kind of fun. But yeah, the Andy Kaufman thing is probably my favorite collectible because there's only one of them in the entire world. He didn't have multiple copies of that jacket, of that turtleneck, of those pants. That was it. And he just kept wearing the same stuff over and over and over and over again. And I have his life mask, which I found at an auction. So I have a life-size Andy Kaufman standing in my living room, looking like he was performing. He used to do a thing with the Mighty Mouse theme, where I don't know if you've ever seen that. You'll have to Google it on YouTube.
I know what Mighty Mouse is. That's fine.
Oh yeah, you've seen Andy Kaufman do the Mighty Mouse?
I've seen Mighty Mouse.
Okay, well, yeah, I know you're young. Well, what he would do in his performance was he would take the Mighty Mouse theme song, and he would lip sync it, but only one part. Here I come to save the day, and he'd stand there while the record played and just look like a deer in headlights. And then when his part came up, and then he would lip sync it. It was brilliant. Avant-garde. It was the epitome of. He was on the first episode of Saturday Night Live wearing the outfit that I have. So that's probably my favorite collectible because that's just literally irreplaceable. So that's kind of fun. Well, if I, as I was a kid learning how to perform and how to do this stuff, watching Andy Kaufman on TV and seeing him on Saturday Night Live doing this Mighty Mouse routine, it never occurred to me when I was 14, 13 years old, I'm going to see those clothes he's wearing? I'm going to own those someday. It never occurred to me in a million years. It never occurred to me in a million years that my hero Adam West as Batman and I would become good friends for 37 years. It never occurred to me that half the stuff that I have going on would have happened. That Starsky and Hutch, a TV show over here that was, big when I was a kid, that I would actually have one of those cars and actually be friends with Starsky and Hutch. And it just blows my mind how, dreams come true. What can I tell you? So
we're talking about the original Starsky and Hutch, not the one that was in the early 2000s, right?
Well, the one in the early 2000s was based on that TV show, Starsky and Hutch, which was a lot of the people who were the hardcore fans of that Starsky and Hutch TV show hated the movie.
Okay.
And I didn't understand the hatred for it. I thought it was kind of charming and fun because I understood it. I got it. I got what they were trying to do. And I explained it to them the best way I could. It's like, well, it's the Mad Magazine version of Starsky and Hutch. And you know what Mad Magazine is?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, it's satire. And I said, if you just go to it and you think, okay, well, this is going to be a parody. This is Mad Magazine's version of Starsky and Hutch. Then you're okay with it. Because it wasn't a faithful, pound-for-pound replication of the original TV series. There's no way you could ever do that because it was magical. The chemistry was magic and everything. So, to think that I now have several items signed by those guys and they've driven my car and we've driven around together and it's unbelievable. And my 13-year-old self would have been, his mind would have been blown by all of this stuff. So it's pretty fantastic.
Yeah, no, that is pretty cool. And you've got the ability of hindsight now. But you're right. Your younger self would never have imagined that you'd be friends with these people, and that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, never. If I could have looked ahead in the future at 13 years old and saw all the stuff that I was going to get to do as an adult, I would have had a heart attack and died and never gotten to to accomplish any of that stuff because I would have been like, my head would have blown. My head would have literally exploded and I would not have ever lived long enough to do all that stuff. But yeah, it's pretty great. So anyway. What are those things in the background? The pink thing and the blue thing on top of it with, yeah.
That's a Kirby. That is a Kirby pillow. And that is a Pokemon that I'm actually unfamiliar with because it's not my Pokemon. But that is a Pokemon that I'm unfamiliar with. So this is a little slightly different studio to what I usually have, and I've put a bunch of random stuff in the background because I'm not in my own house, which is made.
And Kirby is who again now?
Kirby is it's from the Super Smash Brothers. That's my experiences with Kirby. Yes, and it's the one that puffs up and then eats. It's like a Pac-Man, but a pink Pac-Man in the game. That's what she is. She is a pink Pac-Man.
Oh, it's a she. Okay.
Yeah, well, I assume she's a she. I've never really Googled what gender Now you've got my curiosity up. But yeah, so that's what I've got in my background. I'm really disappointed that I wasn't in my own studio because I would have my Obi-Wan. I'd show you.
Oh, good. Is Kirby sitting on a microwave oven, or what is that?
No, that's an old record antique cabinet. It used to have some records in it. I've put them away.
Oh,
But that
is it a phonograph or just a record case?
It's a record case. You put your record
Oh.
player on top. It came as a set.
Oh.
It's from
Nice.
the 60s, which is cool. But I put away the records because I didn't want them to get dust and.
I just recently got rid of well, not recently, several years ago. As a radio DJ, you get all these freebies from the record companies, you know, to play on the air. So I had a huge record collection, huge. And I had to keep most of it in storage in South Dakota when I moved here. Finally, when it came time to clear out my storage, it's like, I don't want to do this anymore. I just took a lot of the records I didn't need anymore. A lot of the stuff had come out on CD anyway, so I didn't really need to keep it. So I kept a handful of records, and I managed to collect a few more when I was here in Los Angeles from a radio station that was switching formats, and they were giving some of those records away. So I have a pretty good collection of vinyl. I also have 45s and LPs, but I just recently bought a new turntable. The Sony turntable that I've had for many years, 20 years, finally I think the drive band, the belt, was just wore out, and it wouldn't go up to speed to 45, but it would play 33 eventually, you know, and it just wasn't, and it wouldn't shut off. You'd have to try and shut off. You'd have to physically unplug it. I'm like, okay, this thing is not good. So I pulled that out. I'm going to give that to Goodwill in hopes that somebody can maybe fix it or whatever. And I just bought one on Amazon for $100-some, and it showed up, and I played a 45. I'm like, this sounds great. So yes, I will always have a phonograph, a turntable, a vinyl turntable in my setup. I will always have a VHS player. I will always have a CD recorder. I will always have a DVD player because you just never know when in the business sometimes they'll say, can you do the voice of, you know, ... And I'll be like, I don't know, let me see. And sometimes it's on YouTube now, and you can find it fairly easily, and sometimes not. And I pride myself on having an enormous collection of VHS, CDs, DVDs, etc. A library that I can tap for resources and look some of this stuff up and see if I can do these voices. When I was asked to do Barney Rubble for the New Year's Eve commercial for Pebble cereal just this past couple of months ago, I hadn't ever really done Barney Rubble before, and I'm like, yeah, I can do Fred and Barney. I think I can manage that. But it's nice to have some stuff to refer to in the collection. And I always used to kind of jokingly do the voice of Barney Rubble to my friend Fred, who was an agent. I'd go over to his house on the weekend to hang out and go, "Hey, Fred," and I'd always like that as Barney. So you just never know when you're going to be called upon to do something like that you need to have a good library for. Of course, a lot of it, like I said, is up on YouTube, and you can always find reference material there. But I like to have it, as much of it in-house as possible. So, yeah, I'll always have a vinyl record player. I'll always have a VHS player, a cassette, player, dual cassette. They used to have two cassette players in one thing. You could, one could record, one would play. You can dub from cassette to cassette, or you could just play. Because I like to have all this stuff. Now, it's getting harder and harder to find electronics that will support said old electronics, like a receiver. A lot of the receivers now just have HDMI and a lot of the digital connections, and they don't have a lot of the analog connections that you need to plug in a cassette player or a record player or whatever. But I'm sure there's somebody out there who is still making this stuff for audio files and video files who still want to maintain that.
I don't know the company because I saw it off it was a YouTube ad. And I skipped it within 5 seconds because I could, like most YouTube ads. It came up, and I really wish I didn't skip it because it was actually interesting. It was a connector. So the company has a connector that enables you to connect old devices to your brand new TV. So it was it was a Nintendo 64 that was in the clip, and it was just a habit to just go click skip, and then I went, oh no, I actually wanted to see what that was.
Right.
I can't play my Nintendo 64 on my brand new TV, which
Right.
is frustrating because sometimes you just really want to play some sort of pod racing, which was on a Nintendo 64, and I loved that game so much. Or my PlayStation 1, that still works. My Sega doesn't, for example. So yeah, you kind of want those old connections sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes I have a boxes and boxes of cassettes down in storage in my garage, and someday I'm going to get down there and go, oh, here's an air check for my radio show when I was 16 years old. I'd like to hear this, or I'd like to dub this to, to CD or whatever. I like to digitize it so I can at least keep it for posterity. So that's why I always keep that stuff around, because sure enough, I'm going to want to hear a record or something, and it's just my turntable's going to have gone south or something because the belt's old and crumbly. But I like to keep all that stuff up, kind of to, because you never know when you're going to find some sort of gem in the mishmash of my life where I'm like, I sure would love to see this again, like an old VHS variety show taped off TV 100 years ago that would never come out on VHS or never come out on DVD, let alone streaming or any of the other stuff. Because it's like a Linda Carter variety show from 1976, and it's like, it's never going to come out. First of all, they'd never get to clear the music rights. Secondly, they might sell 20 copies and at the most, and who cares? But I want to see it because Telly Savalas is on, all these great people. But whatever. So I will always probably have a VHS player, DVD player. Some of the people don't even have DVD players anymore. Mm-hmm. It's stunning to me. It's like, what? I'm not a fan of streaming because that stuff goes away from time to time, and they can be pulled off the stream, and I'm like, but I wanted to watch that.
Yeah.
And if you own it, you just pull it out of the rack and put it up, give it a spin on the DVD player, and you're golden.
I agree with that. I was halfway through a series, and then Netflix decided to remove that series, which was really frustrating.
Yeah.
Because I had to go find that series elsewhere, which I didn't pay for. And I blame Netflix for that. That wasn't my fault.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
I tried.
Well, the whole thing was with this Disney announcing that all the other seasons of The Muppet Show is coming out, because they released the first 3 seasons on DVD, but they never did season 4 or 5. And now it's like, all the seasons of The Muppet Show. It's like, yeah, but they're streaming, and I can't watch it because I don't stream, so whatever. And then I'm looking for old Christmas music that I'm hearing on the satellite. I'm like, okay, well, I'd actually like to buy this song. So I go on Amazon, and they let you play it, but you can't buy it and download it. And I'm just thinking, do you not want my money? Do you not want me to pay you this for these songs? What's going on? So I'm not really sure why they just let you listen to it, but they don't want to sell it to you. It's very strange. So, yeah, the whole streaming thing is perplexing to me. I'd prefer just to own it. I like DVDs. You open them up, you hold them, you smell them, you put them in, and it's nice. But as opposed to streaming, which doesn't even really seem tangible, very very much. So it's the living room setup, the home theater setup.
Okay.
Not a lot.
Oh, you got a Scully. Sully.
Yeah. That Elvis is an Elvis robot. I wish I could turn the lights on there.
That's cool.
A lot of other stuff that. Oh, yeah, it doesn't like the low light. There's a bunch of stuff up there.
That's all right. I can see Pinocchio.
Yep. A lot of artwork and a lot of stuff, so it's pretty cool.
Cool.
So anyway, and then this stuff over here, there's some artwork up here. And I love old Halloween masks. Vintage Halloween masks. There's a bunch of figures over there. My kitchen, my Star Trek collection. Star Wars, no muddy Obi-Wan Kenobi figures, unfortunately. And then my showcase, and there's Adam and Bert, right? Yeah, it's fun to have people come over and tour the stuff, and I've had couples come over, and the guy was, a huge collector, and the woman not so much. So the guy stands at the front door and looks, when the lights are on down there, it looks pretty magical. And I see the stars in his eyes, like, wow. And then his wife nudges him and goes, don't get any ideas. Like, we're not doing this.
Yeah, my partner will be saying the same thing as she's watching the video at the start. After this is all uploaded on YouTube, she'll be like, you're not doing that.
You're not doing that. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, the lunch boxes and the whole thing, and but in my defense, it's all displayed very well, I think, and it's all organized into categories, and there's a bit of sporadic stuff here and there, but and it's all nicely. I mean, look at the how the lunch boxes are all kind of displayed. They're all thematic, and I got all my Batman stuff together, all my Star Trek stuff, Planet of the Apes, Star Wars stuff all together. So it's not monsters. So it's not necessarily, well, there's a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. It's like, no, well, we're moving into this section now. Okay, this is the wax figure, the section. This is the, and a lot of my stuff that I have in the kitchen is all kind of thematic to kitchen stuff, like breakfast cereal related stuff, drink mix, old packets of drink mix from the 60s. And so it's I try and keep it as thematic as possible. So it's not, I don't want it junky looking, You
mentioned radio a lot, and you were in radio a lot. I know from experience, it's a tough industry to get into. Once you're in, though, it could be quite a fun time.
Not in the Midwest. If you can say your name without stumbling, you're hired. In the Midwest, they were like, please, anybody who can talk, just come work, and we'll have you work on Christmas when we want to go on vacation, and you just keep the records playing. That's all we ask.
Not much has changed, and in Australia, it's basically that. Oh, you're the young dude that you can work over Christmas, Easter, New Year's Eve.
Right.
You don't need to go out, right?
Oh, by the way, you'll need to dump the trash at the end of every day, and you'll have to sweep up, and you'll have to clean the cigarette butts out of the urinal, and you'll have to, okay, whatever, I just want a job. I just want to be there. So, yeah.
Other side of the world, it's the same thing. That's what I'm hearing. But yeah, it's a fun industry. Being any young, I don't know, potential people that wanted to get into radio, you think it's worth it? Did you enjoy it a lot?
Oh, I did, but radio was a lot different back then than it is now. It's over researched now. It's not fun. It's just a lot of guys aren't even really live on the air anymore. They pre-record their voice tracks, and it's the computer that kind of puts them in the because terrestrial radio is having to compete with so many different things now. Streaming, Spotify, Pandora, satellite radio. It's really, the competition is in way more than what we had to deal with back when we were just terrestrial radio. We had the country station, and we had the rock and roll station, and we had our station, and we kind of competed between ourselves, and we didn't have all these different things that we had to compete with. But back in the old days, when radio was magic, it was, rock and roll in the 70s and 80s, and it was really fun stuff before you had all these different types of different competition. So it is fun to get into, but it's nowhere near as fun, I don't think, as it was in the old days. Because I have a friend who we were DJ buddies back in the old days in South Dakota, and he's still back there, but he's a big muckety-muck now. He's one of the brand managers at the station. And I'm like, hey, what's going on? He's like, just radio's not any, where it used to be. I just want to go back in time and get on the air and do a 4-hour air shift and play rock and roll and have fun and talk to girls on the phone. And it's just not the same anymore because they record the voice tracks, and you can do it from home. You don't even have to be at the station anymore. You get the log, that the station sends you. Well, here's the songs. Here are the commercial breaks, and it's not really the same. But back in the old days, where you're spinning the hits, playing the hits and having fun. 97.7 KWXY. It was a great time. And if the record skipped and you hit the turntable, you heard that on the air. There was no MP3. There's no wave that's just playing in a computer that nobody ever sees. No, you have to get that. I still have radio nightmares of where my record has run out and I can't read the labels on anything to put the next thing in, and there's dead air. And oh boy, it's crazy. I'll probably always have radio nightmares till the end of my days. But it was a lot of fun. Boy, it was a lot of fun, those radio days. And then it trained you for doing stuff eventually in voice acting, especially if you were had some characters' voices that you would use in your radio show, which I did from time to time. I used a lot of character voices in my radio show, so that really helped to kind of train for the whole thing. Radio today, I don't know, not really the same, where you're, preparing what you're going to say and you're queuing up the next record and you're putting your commercials in, and the computer all does that now. It's taken all the fun out of it, I think.
From my personal experience, you did pretty much describe exactly how it is nowadays as well. So, yeah.
And it's just, but the field is a lot more flooded than it used to be. It was, the old days, you'd go to a casting session at a casting company in Hollywood, and it was for a Coca-Cola commercial, and you'd see the usual, dozen guys. Hey, what's going on? Hey, how's the family? It was the same guys all the time. And then they'd call 2 or 3 of them back, and then you'd go back for the call back, and then they'd settle on, one of you. But it was just the same group of guys. Now, with the internet, they can audition not 50 guys, but 5,000 guys from all over the world, So you're competing with not only just the guys down the street, but guys from all over the world who might have a setup just in a closet with, little laptop, and they're, now Coca-Cola brings you the wonderful talents of, and all these guys are auditioning from all corners of the world. So it's made it, it's divided the pie up considerably thinner than it used to be. But boy, during the 20 years, the first 20 years that I was involved in it, was magical, just magical. And the internet has revolutionized it and has helped a lot, but it also has kind of ruined a lot of the aspects of it, to where, well, if you can just record at home and you can just do your lines and then some editor put your lines together, you're not having the fun and thrill of getting together in a room with other actors and getting a script and just kind of performing this episode together. So that's kind of suffered as well. So hopefully it'll all kind of come back to where it was, but so many voice actors I know have kind of moved out of Hollywood, thinking we don't even really need to be here anymore. I still have my clients, and I can move to Montana or Idaho or Kansas or wherever, and I can work there just on the internet and service my clients, and I don't need to be in the muckety muck of Los Angeles with all the craziness. I can live a simple life here and still make some good money and still be a union member, and it's kind of nice. So I choose to still live here because I love the energy here. But a lot of guys have moved on and said, we don't really see the need to have to be in Los Angeles anymore. And if there's a reason for me to have to be there for an in-person thing, I'll fly in, whatever. So it's modern problems, problems of the modern world. But I'm staying put for the nonce. So until nobody wants me anymore and they've drawn the line, and then I'll go, all right, I'm going to sell half of this stuff. The rest of the half I'll take with me, and I'll go somewhere, New Mexico, Colorado, Texas, Florida, somewhere warm. Can't do cold anymore. So I don't know. We'll see. But everything changes. But I was blessed and glad to have been involved in not only radio but also voiceover and kind of the glory days. So it's kind of nice.
As I said, thanks again for your time today. It was great. And if you're watching this on YouTube later on, please do make sure to subscribe, hit the like button. All the socials are down in the description below, as well as the kit where you can support the channel. But also, you can check out my blog, Nerds for Life blog. It's where all the articles from my interviews end up. So do check that out, all in the description below. Again, thanks so much, Wally, for your time today.
You're welcome. Twitter, Wally Wingert, or at Wally Wingert, Wally.Wingert on Instagram. WallyOnTheWeb.com. Stay in touch, everybody. Email me. I read all the emails that come in through my website. So drop me a line, and I'm always happy to hear from you.
Perfect. And I vouch for that.
Oh, yeah. Right.